Young billionaire hears a little girl talk about a birthday without a cake. And what he does is unbelievable. Downtown was buzzing with the typical hustle of a Thursday afternoon. Amanda walked slowly down the sidewalk, holding Chloe's small hand tightly. Her worries weighed as heavily as the worn-out bag she carried on her shoulder. Another unsuccessful job interview, overdue bills piling up, and a practically empty refrigerator at home. Chloe, with her 5 years and blonde hair that bounced with every step, observed everything around her with the natural curiosity of children. Her bright eyes took in every detail of the busy street, from the passing cars to the colorful shop windows. "Mommy, can we go this way?" Chloe gently pulled Amanda's hand toward the left side of the sidewalk. Amanda followed her daughter, lost in her own thoughts. How would she get the money for next month's rent? How could she explain to Chloe that they might have to move again? How could she keep hope alive when everything seemed to be falling apart? That's when Chloe stopped abruptly. "Mommy, look!" Amanda looked in the direction her daughter was pointing and sighed. An elegant bakery displayed a dazzling collection of cakes in its window. There were chocolate cakes decorated with red roses, others covered in white frosting with small golden pearls, and some with colorful designs that looked like edible works of art. "They're so pretty, aren't they, Mommy?" Chloe pressed her little nose against the window pane. "Yes, they are, sweetie." Amanda tried to gently pull her daughter's hand away. "But we need to go." Chloe, however, didn't move. Her bright eyes were fixed on one particular cake, a chocolate one covered with pink frosting and decorated with small sugar butterflies. "Mommy," Chloe's voice came out in a dreamy tone, "I want a birthday cake." Amanda felt her stomach tighten. "Chloe, honey, let's keep walking." "But I really want a birthday cake, Mommy, like that one." Chloe pointed to the cake with butterflies. "It can be a small one. It doesn't have to be big." Amanda knelt beside her daughter, at eye level. "Sweetie, you know Mommy can't buy one right now." "But it's my birthday next week," Chloe insisted, her voice filled with hope. "And I've never had a real birthday cake." "I know, honey, but Mommy doesn't have the money." Chloe looked at her mother, then at the cakes in the window, and back at Amanda. Her bright eyes filled with a sadness that no 5-year-old should ever carry. "My birthday won't have a cake." Her voice came out in a soft, resigned whisper. "I'm sorry, Mommy." The words hit Amanda like a punch to the gut. Chloe was apologizing. A 5-year-old child was apologizing for wanting something as simple as a birthday cake. "No, sweetie, you don't need to apologize." Amanda felt her eyes sting. "Oh, it's not your fault. It's Mommy who's sorry for not being able to give this to you." Chloe just nodded, with a maturity that broke Amanda's heart. "It's okay, Mommy. I understand." Across the street, Matthew Rivers had just left an important meeting. At 28, he had built a financial empire that impressed even the most seasoned investors. He wore a flawless suit, carried an Italian leather briefcase, and walked with the confidence of someone who had never known the word no when it came to money. Matthew was checking messages on his phone when something caught his attention. A conversation across the street in front of a bakery. A blonde woman was kneeling next to a small girl, also blonde. Something about their posture made him slow his pace. He wasn't in the habit of taking an interest in the lives of strangers. He lived in a bubble where problems were solved with bank transfers and business deals. But something about that scene bothered him in a way he couldn't explain. Matthew crossed the street, approaching slowly. As he got closer, he could hear snippets of the conversation. "Don't have money." "My birthday won't have a cake." "I'm sorry." The words hit him like small electric shocks. Matthew stopped a few feet away, pretending to look at the window of a shop next door, but paying close attention to the conversation between mother and daughter. The little girl looked at the cakes with a desire so pure and painful that Matthew felt something strange stir in his chest. When was the last time he had wanted something with such simplicity? When was the last time something had touched him in that way? "Let's go, sweetie." Amanda stood up, holding Chloe's hand. "We need to go home." "Okay, Mommy." Chloe gave the cakes one last look. "One day, when I grow up and have money, I'll buy a really pretty birthday cake, and I'll share it with you." Matthew couldn't stand still. Before he even thought about what he was doing, he approached the two of them. "Excuse me," he said, his voice sounding softer than usual. Amanda and Chloe turned, surprised. Their bright eyes stared at him with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Sorry to interrupt," Matthew continued, smiling gently, "but I couldn't help but overhear that someone here has a birthday coming up." Amanda straightened up, clearly uncomfortable. "Oh yes, my daughter. But we were just leaving. What's your name, little one?" Matthew addressed Chloe directly, crouching down to be at her level. Chloe looked at her mother, asking for silent permission. "You can tell him," Amanda said hesitantly. "Chloe," the girl answered shyly. "What a beautiful name. And when is your birthday, Chloe?" "Next week. But there won't be a cake." Chloe spoke without bitterness, merely stating a fact. "Mommy doesn't have money." Matthew looked at Amanda, who was visibly embarrassed, then back at Chloe. "You know what, Chloe? I think every birthday should have a cake. How about we pick one out here in the shop?" Amanda shook her head quickly. "No, thank you. That's very kind of you, but we can't accept." "Please," Matthew insisted, still looking at Chloe. "It would be my pleasure. Which one of those cakes did you like the most?" Chloe's eyes lit up, but she looked to her mother for approval. "Mommy, can I choose?" she asked, her voice filled with restrained hope. Amanda fought with herself. Pride told her to refuse, but the joy on her daughter's face was impossible to ignore. We don't even know your name," Amanda said. "Matthew Rivers," he extended his hand. "And you must be Amanda and Chloe, I imagine." "How do you know my name?" Amanda asked, shaking his hand hesitantly. "I heard you calling your daughter." "So her Chloe. Which one will it be?" Chloe practically flew to the window, pressing both hands against the glass. "That one." She pointed to the chocolate cake with sugar butterflies. "It's the prettiest one I've ever seen in my life." "Excellent choice," Matthew smiled. "Now let's go inside and have them get it ready." Inside the bakery, Chloe was ecstatic to be so close to the cakes. The attendant, following Matthew's instructions, brought the chosen cake and even placed a small candle on top. "Can I blow it out?" Chloe asked, her eyes shining with excitement. "Of course. Make a wish first," Matthew said. Chloe closed her eyes tightly, made her silent wish, and blew out the candle with all her might. "What did you wish for?" Amanda asked, smiling for the first time since Matthew had met them. "For Mommy to get a job soon," Chloe answered naturally. Matthew felt something tighten in his chest. When was the last time someone had made a wish thinking of someone else? They sat at a small table in the bakery to eat the cake. Matthew watched, fascinated, as Chloe savored every bite as if it were the most delicious thing in the world. And maybe for her, it was. "Is it good?" Matthew asked. "It's the best cake I've ever had in my life," Chloe replied, with pink frosting on the corner of her mouth. "So thank you for giving me my first birthday cake. The pleasure was all mine, Chloe." When they finished eating, Matthew stood up. "Wait here just a minute, okay?" He quickly left the bakery and returned 5 minutes later. He approached Amanda and discreetly placed some bills in her hand. "What is this?" Amanda asked, trying to return the money. "For you to buy a birthday present for Chloe," Matthew explained. "No, I can't accept this." Amanda shook her head vigorously. The cake was more than enough. "Thank you, but please, accept it." Matthew gently closed Amanda's hand over the money. "I really liked Chloe. She deserves to have a birthday present." Amanda looked at the money, then at Matthew, then at Chloe, who was drawing butterflies on a napkin. "Why are you doing this?" Amanda asked, her voice almost a whisper. Matthew looked at Chloe, who was now proudly showing them her drawing. "Because she touched me in a way I didn't expect," Matthew answered honestly. "Sam, it's been a long time since I've seen someone so genuine." "She is special," Amanda agreed, with tears in her eyes. "You both are." Amanda felt her eyes well up with tears. Thank you so much." Chloe approached Matthew, tugging on the hem of his jacket. "Matthew?" "Yes, Chloe." "Will we see you again?" Matthew smiled, but there was a melancholy in his eyes. "Who knows, little one?" "Where do you live?" Matthew walked out of the bakery with them and pointed to the imposing glass skyscraper that dominated the city's skyline. "There." Chloe followed the direction of his finger, and her eyes widened. "In the whole building?" Matthew laughed. "No, just on the top floor." "Wow, you must be very rich," Chloe said with the typical sincerity of children. "I have money, yes." Then why do you look sad sometimes? The question hit Matthew like a lightning bolt. He knelt down again to be at Chloe's level. Just sometimes having money isn't enough to be happy, Chloe. Mommy says the most important things in life don't cost money. Your mommy is very wise. Chloe suddenly hugged him, catching Matthew completely off guard. Thank you for making my birthday special. Matthew returned the hug, feeling an emotion he hadn't experienced in years. For a moment, he understood what Amanda meant about the most important things in life. You're welcome, Chloe. When they separated, Matthew stood up and waved to Amanda. Take care. Thank you for everything, Amanda said, her voice heavy with emotion. Chloe will never forget this day. Neither will I, Matthew replied sincerely. He started to walk away, but Chloe shouted after him. Matthew, he turned around. If you feel sad again, you can come visit us. Mommy makes really good coffee. Matthew smiled, waving one last time before disappearing into the crowd. Amanda stood on the sidewalk, holding the money in one hand and Chloe's hand in the other, watching the elegant figure walk away. Mommy, is he our guardian angel? Chloe asked. Amanda looked at her daughter, then at the glass building where Matthew had pointed, and back at the bills in her hand. Maybe he is, sweetie. Maybe he is. That night, Matthew was in his top-floor apartment, looking out the panoramic window that offered a complete view of the city. He had everything money could buy: a luxurious apartment, expensive cars, designer clothes, investments that grew every day. But he couldn't get the bright eyes of a 5-year-old girl out of his head, nor her genuine way of seeing the world. There was something in Chloe's simplicity that had struck him deeply. Matthew looked at his reflection in the window glass. A young, successful, rich man, and completely alone. Why had that child affected him so much? Why did he feel as if he had found something he didn't even know he was looking for? Across the city, Chloe slept, hugging a new teddy bear that Amanda had bought with the money Matthew had given them. On the nightstand beside her bed was a piece of the chocolate butterfly cake, carefully wrapped in a napkin. To eat on my real birthday, Chloe had said before falling asleep. Amanda watched her daughter sleep, still processing the day's events. A stranger had appeared out of nowhere and completely changed their day, not just with money, but with genuine kindness. And for the first time in a long time, Amanda felt that maybe things could get better. Maybe there were still people willing to help without expecting anything in return. And maybe, just maybe, they would meet that mysterious man from the glass building again, who had given her daughter much more than a birthday cake. He had given her hope. And somehow, Amanda felt that they had given something to him too, something he seemed to have lost a long time ago. The ability to be moved by the simple things in life, the human connection that no amount of money in the world could buy. And maybe, just maybe, they had all found exactly what they needed in that unexpected encounter in front of a simple cake display. The next morning, Chloe woke up earlier than usual. Amanda found her sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by sheets of paper, colored pencils scattered about, and a level of concentration she rarely saw in her daughter. What are you doing up so early, sweetie? I'm doing something important, Mommy. Chloe didn't even look up from the paper. Her little tongue stuck out from the corner of her mouth, a sign that she was trying her best. Amanda moved closer to get a better look. On the paper, Chloe had drawn 3 stick figures holding hands. One was clearly a woman with long hair, another a small child, and the third a tall man. Next to the figures, she had drawn a round cake with several lines that looked like candles and a brown teddy bear. What a beautiful drawing. Who are those people? It's the 3 of us, Mommy, me, you, and Matthew. Chloe finally looked up, her bright eyes shining with pride. And here's the cake he gave me, and the teddy bear too. Amanda felt a pang in her chest. Her daughter had included Matthew in the drawing as if he were part of their family. It's very beautiful, honey, but why did you wake up so early to draw? Because I want to give it to Matthew. Chloe went back to coloring, now painting the cake pink. He was so nice to me yesterday. My teacher always says that when someone is kind to us, we should say thank you. You already said thank you yesterday, remember? But I want to give him a present too. Chloe stopped drawing and looked at Amanda seriously. He gave me the yummiest cake in the world and the teddy bear. I want to give him something too. Amanda felt her eyes fill with tears. Her daughter's natural generosity always surprised her. Even with so little, Chloe always thought of giving something back. Do you think he'll like the drawing? He will, sweetie. I'm sure of it. Chloe went back to coloring with even more determination. She spent the next 30 minutes adding details, small flowers around the figures, a yellow sun in the corner of the paper, and even some blue clouds in the sky. Done, she finally announced, holding up the paper to show it off. Now we need to take it to Matthew. Amanda looked at the drawing and felt her heart clench. It was simple, colorful, and full of the innocence of a 5-year-old. Matthew was probably used to receiving important reports, million-dollar contracts, documents that moved fortunes. How would he react to a simple drawing from a child? Chloe, honey, Matthew is probably very busy at his job. But I want to thank him. Chloe's face grew sad. Fierce, won't he like my drawing? Of course he'll like it. It's just that workplaces are different. Maybe it's not the best time to... Please, Mommy. Chloe held Amanda's hand. He said he works in that big building. We could go there really quick, just to give him the drawing and say hi. Amanda hesitated. The idea of showing up at the office of Matthew, clearly an important man, made her uncomfortable. But looking at her daughter's hopeful eyes, she couldn't say no. All right, but we'll just deliver the drawing and leave. We don't want to disturb his work. I promise. Chloe clapped her hands, holding the drawing against her chest. 2 hours later, Amanda and Chloe stood in front of the imposing glass building Matthew had pointed out the night before. The structure rose for more than 40 floors, its mirrored walls reflecting the morning's blue sky. Wow, Chloe whispered, tilting her head back to try to see the top. It's even taller than it looked yesterday. Amanda felt intimidated too. The building screamed power and money. Executives in suits constantly came and went, all seeming to know exactly where they were going and what they were doing. Maybe we should come back another day, Amanda murmured. No, Mommy, we're already here. Chloe pulled Amanda's hand toward the entrance. Let's just give him the drawing and go. The building's lobby was even more impressive than the exterior. Gleaming marble covered the floor, exotic plants decorated the corners, and a modern fountain made a soft sound in the center. Several uniformed receptionists attended to visitors behind a sleek, curved counter. Amanda felt completely out of place. Her simple skirt and basic blouse contrasted sharply with the luxurious surroundings. May I help you? One of the receptionists approached with a professional smile. Well, Amanda stammered. We'd like to speak with Matthew Rivers. Mr. Rivers, do you have an appointment? No, but I have a present for him, Chloe interrupted, holding up the drawing. It's very important. The receptionist looked at the colorful paper and then at the blonde girl with bright eyes. Her professional smile became more genuine. A present? How nice. But Mr. Rivers is in a very important meeting right now. Perhaps you could leave it with his secretary. No, Chloe shook her head with determination. I need to give it to him in person. Hurts to thank him for something very special he did. Amanda placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Chloe, the lady is right. Maybe it's better if we leave it with the secretary. Mommy, please, just 5 minutes. The receptionist looked at the two of them and seemed to have an idea. Let me call Mr. Rivers' secretary. Maybe she can find a little time in his schedule. Amanda watched the receptionist make the call, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. What were they doing here? Matthew probably didn't even remember them. For him, buying a cake for an unknown child had just been a casual gesture. For Chloe, it had been the most important day of her life. The secretary said that Mr. Rivers will be out of his meeting in 10 minutes, the receptionist announced. If you'd like to wait, I can take you to the waiting area on his floor. We can, Chloe answered before Amanda could protest. Minutes later, they were sitting in a waiting room on the 38th floor. The windows offered an incredible view of the city, and Amanda understood why Chloe had asked if Matthew felt lonely up there. It was beautiful, but also isolated. Mommy, do you think he remembers us? Chloe asked, swinging her legs on the armchair. I'm sure he does, sweetie. The door to the meeting room opened and several men in suits came out. discussing numbers and charts. Finally, Matthew appeared, impeccable as always, but with a serious expression that Amanda hadn't seen the day before. "Mr. Rivers?" The secretary approached. "There are 2 people waiting for you. They said it's to deliver a gift." Matthew frowned. "A gift? I wasn't expecting anyone." "It's a lady and a little girl. The child insisted she needed to deliver it personally." Matthew looked toward the waiting room, and Amanda saw the exact moment he recognized them. The serious expression vanished from his face, replaced by genuine surprise. "Amanda." "Chloe!" He approached quickly. "What are you 2 doing here?" Chloe jumped up from the armchair, holding the drawing. "Matthew, I made something for you." "For me?" Matthew knelt to be at her level, clearly moved to see her again. "Yes, to thank you for the cake and the teddy bear." Chloe held out the paper. "I drew the 3 of us together, remember? And the cake too, and the teddy bear." Matthew took the drawing carefully, as if it was something very precious. Amanda watched the changes in his expression as he studied every detail of the paper. "Chloe, this is..." Matthew paused, clearly emotional. "This is the most beautiful gift I've ever received in my life." "Really?" Chloe's eyes shone. "Really? Look at how well you drew the cake, and the teddy bear looks just like the one I gave you. And that's the 3 of us." Chloe pointed to the stick figures. "You, me, and Mommy, all friends." Matthew looked at the 3 figures holding hands, and Amanda saw something move in his eyes. When was the last time someone had included him in a family drawing? When was the last time he had received a gift made with so much care and without expecting anything in return? "I'm going to keep this drawing forever, Chloe. Thank you." "Now you can be happy forever," Chloe said, with the simplicity of children, "just like in the movies." Matthew laughed, but there were tears in his eyes. "You're a very special girl, you know that." Amanda watched the interaction, touched by Matthew's genuine emotion. Whatever he had expected to receive as a gift in his life, it clearly hadn't been a child's drawing, but he seemed to value that colorful piece of paper more than any expensive present. "Sorry for coming without notice," Amanda said finally. "Chloe insisted so much that I couldn't say no. No need to apologize. I'm really happy to see you both." Matthew stood up, still holding the drawing. "How did you get up here?" "The lady at the reception helped us," Amanda explained. "And your secretary was very kind." Matthew nodded, but Amanda noticed he seemed uncomfortable with something. There was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there the day before. "Matthew," Amanda said hesitantly, "I don't want to abuse your kindness, but do you happen to know if there are any job openings here at the company?" The question hung in the air for a moment. Matthew looked at Amanda, and she saw him processing the request. Actually, at the moment we don't have any open positions at the company," he said carefully. Amanda felt her heart sink. "I see. I just thought, maybe..." "But," Matthew continued quickly, "I have a different proposal. Would you be interested in working as a cleaner at my house?" Amanda blinked, surprised. "At your house?" "Yes. I need someone to do the cleaning, maybe cook sometimes. Nothing too complicated. And you could bring Chloe with you if you want." Amanda felt a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. It was a job, which she desperately needed, but it also reminded her of the class difference between them. I don't know what to say. "Mommy, you can clean Matthew's house," Chloe said excitedly, "and I can play while you work." Matthew smiled at Chloe, then looked back at Amanda. "The pay would be fair, and you'd have flexible hours because of Chloe. What do you think?" Amanda wrestled with herself internally. Pride told her to refuse. Accepting charity from a man she barely knew felt wrong. But practicality reminded her she hadn't been able to find work in weeks, and they desperately needed money. She thought of the bills piling up, the empty refrigerator, and Chloe's upcoming birthday with no money for presents. "You'd really let me bring Chloe?" "Of course. In fact, I think I'd like having her around." Amanda took a deep breath. "All right, yes, I'd like to accept your offer." Matthew smiled genuinely for the first time since they had arrived. "Perfect. When can you start?" "Whenever you need me." "How about tomorrow morning, around 9? "That works for me." Chloe tugged on Matthew's sleeve. "Matthew, Now that Mommy is going to work at your house, does that mean we'll see you every day? Matthew looked at her, and Amanda saw something soft and hopeful in his expression. Maybe not every day, but often. Would you like that? Yes, and maybe you won't be lonely anymore in your big apartment. Matthew's breath hitched. Maybe not, Chloe. Maybe not. As they prepared to leave, Matthew walked them to the elevators. Amanda, here's my address and the security code. He handed her a card. The doorman will be expecting you tomorrow. Thank you, Matthew. Seriously, This means more than you know. Thank you for letting Chloe visit me today. This drawing... He looked at the paper still in his hands. This made my whole week. As the elevator doors closed, Amanda saw Matthew standing there, still holding Chloe's drawing, with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. On the way home, Chloe chattered excitedly about seeing Matthew again and exploring his apartment. Amanda half listened, lost in thought about the dramatic turn their lives had taken. Yesterday they were strangers admiring cakes through a window. Today she had a job, and somehow it seemed they had gained something more as well. A connection that neither she nor Matthew had expected, united by the pure heart of a 5-year-old girl who believed in giving thank-you gifts and drawing families where none had existed before. And for the first time in months, Amanda felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Hope that maybe things could get better. Hope that maybe they had found not just a job, but also a new chance to start over. And most importantly, hope that Chloe could grow up knowing people like Matthew, people who valued handmade drawings more than important documents, and who saw beauty in the simplicity of a child's heart. That night, Matthew Rivers taped Chloe's drawing to the wall of his private office, right next to the window that overlooked the entire city, and every time he looked at those 3 stick figures holding hands, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the feeling of belonging to something, of being part of something bigger than himself, of having a family, even if it was drawn in colored pencil by a 5-year-old child. The next morning, Amanda stood in front of the residential building Matthew had indicated on the card. It was different from the commercial building where he worked, more elegant, more discreet, but equally impressive. The doorman, already informed of her arrival, greeted her cordially and directed her to the elevator that went directly to the top floor. "Mommy, it's like we're going to the moon," Chloe whispered as the elevator swiftly ascended the 40 floors. Amanda held her daughter's hand tightly, trying to control her nerves. It was her first day of work in months, and in an environment completely outside of her experience. When the doors opened, she took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Matthew opened the door, wearing a light blue dress shirt and dark pants. He looked ready to leave for work, but his face lit up when he saw them. "Good morning, Amanda." "Hi, Chloe." "Hi, Matthew." Chloe waved excitedly. "I came to see your house, and I'm here to work," Amanda added quickly, still a bit tense. "Of course, please, come in." Amanda took the first step inside and nearly lost her breath. The apartment was larger than she had imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Elegant furniture occupied the spaces with mathematical precision, and everything was impeccably clean and organized. "Wow," she murmured, unable to contain herself. "It's pretty, isn't it, Mommy?" Chloe was already exploring, her bright eyes wide. "Matthew, your house is the size of a castle." Matthew laughed. "It's not that big. Let me show you the rooms." For the next 15 minutes, Matthew gave them a tour of the apartment. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a large living room, a modern kitchen equipped with state-of-the-art appliances, a private office, and even a small library. Everything was luxurious, but there was something Amanda noticed immediately. There was no life there. There were no personal photographs on the tables, no objects that told a story, no hint that someone actually lived in those rooms. It was beautiful, but cold, impeccable, but empty. "The kitchen has everything you need," Matthew explained, opening cabinets. "House, you can use anything, and if you need any specific cleaning products, just let me know." "All right," Amanda observed every detail, already mentally planning her work. "Matthew, can I draw on that table over there?" Chloe pointed to a glass coffee table in the living room. "Of course. Let me just get some paper for you so you don't scratch the glass." While Matthew looked for paper, Amanda noticed how he cared about details concerning Chloe. It wasn't just politeness, there was a genuine care there. "I need to go to work now," Matthew said when he returned with a stack of paper and some pencils. "I'll be back around 7 tonight. Hey, if you need anything, my number is on the fridge." "Okay, you can go without worry." After Matthew left, Amanda stood in the middle of the living room for a moment, observing her surroundings. It was intimidating, but also an opportunity. She could make a difference here. "Chloe, you draw here while Mommy starts working, okay?" "Okay, Mommy." "I'm going to draw Matthew's house." Amanda started with the kitchen. The cabinets were organized, but there was a rigidity to the arrangement that bothered her. Everything seemed to have a specific place, but none of those places seemed chosen with care. It was functional, not welcoming. She rearranged some items, placing the most used spices in more accessible spots, organized the refrigerator more practically, and cleaned every surface until it shone. But what really transformed the environment was when she opened all the windows. The morning breeze entered the apartment like a breath of new life. The curtains moved gently, the air circulated, and suddenly the space seemed to breathe. "Mommy, what a nice breeze." Chloe looked up from her drawing, her blonde hair swaying. "It's good to let the air in, sweetie. It's good for the house." Amanda moved on to the living room, fluffing pillows, adjusting decorative objects, cleaning every surface. But it was when she started preparing lunch that the apartment truly came to life. The smell of home-cooked food spread through the rooms. Amanda decided to make a simple dish, grilled chicken with vegetables and rice. Nothing fancy, but made with care. As she cooked, she hummed softly, and Chloe accompanied her with her drawings. "Mommy, can I explore the other rooms?" "You can, but don't touch anything you're not supposed to, okay?" "Okay." Chloe ran down the hallway, and Amanda smiled as she heard the quick little footsteps echoing through the apartment. How long had it been since those hallways had heard a child's laughter? During the afternoon, Amanda continued her work methodically. She cleaned the bathrooms, vacuumed the carpets, wiped down all the furniture. But she also did small things that no one had asked for. She arranged the pillows in a more inviting way, placed some flowers she had bought on the way in a vase, and left some tea prepared in the kitchen. Chloe, meanwhile, had transformed the coffee table into her personal studio. There were drawings scattered everywhere, the view from the window, the apartment seen from inside, and several versions of Matthew, herself, and Amanda as a family of stick figures. "Mommy, look." Chloe showed a drawing where she had tried to reproduce the kitchen. "It's Matthew's kitchen, but with us inside." Amanda looked at the drawing and smiled. Chloe had drawn herself cooking, Amanda cleaning, and Matthew sitting at the table, smiling. It was the vision of a family that existed only in the pure imagination of a child. Very beautiful, honey. As the day went on, Amanda noticed how the apartment was changing. They weren't big or visible changes. It was more of a feeling. The circulating air, the smell of food, the sound of Chloe playing, her own presence caring for every detail. The space was gaining a soul. Around 5 in the afternoon, Amanda was finishing organizing Matthew's office when she heard Chloe calling from the living room. "Mommy, come see." Amanda found her daughter standing before the panoramic window, observing the city below. "It's very high up, isn't it, Mommy? You can see everything from here." "Yes, you can. It's a beautiful view. But it must also be a bit lonely. So far from everything, so far from people." Chloe's observation surprised Amanda. A 5-year-old child had captured exactly what she herself felt about that place. "Maybe that's why Matthew was happy when we showed up," Chloe continued. "He needed friends." Amanda knelt beside her daughter, looking at the view with her, "Maybe so, sweetie." At 7 o'clock sharp, Amanda heard the key in the lock. She was in the kitchen, finishing up dinner. She had decided to leave something ready for Matthew as part of her work. "Hi, everyone," Matthew called from the entrance. "Matthew!" Chloe ran to him, carrying one of her drawings. "Look what I made." Amanda watched from the kitchen as Matthew knelt to receive Chloe's drawing. There was something different about his posture. In the office, he always seemed tense, controlled. Here, with Chloe, there was a softness she hadn't seen before. "Wow, Chloe, you drew my kitchen." "Yes, And look, that's you, eating the food Mommy made." Matthew looked up and met Amanda's eyes as she stood in the kitchen doorway. For a moment, they looked at each other in silence. "You cooked?" he asked. "I prepared a simple dinner. I thought it would be part of the job." Matthew walked into the kitchen, and Amanda saw his expression change as he took in the differences in the environment, the smell of home-cooked food, the open windows bringing in the evening breeze, the table set with care. He paused, as if he didn't know what to say. "It's been a long time since I've come home to this." "To what?" Matthew looked around, trying to find the words. Life, movement, the smell of food, the sound of a child playing. He paused. Warmth. Amanda felt something tighten in her chest. It's just home-cooked food, nothing special. To me, it's a lot. During dinner, Amanda watched Matthew interact with Chloe. He asked questions about her drawings, listened attentively to her stories, and smiled genuinely when she said something funny. It wasn't just politeness, he truly enjoyed the girl's company. "Matthew, are you going to work again tomorrow?" Chloe asked, poking at her rice with a fork. "I am. But will you two be here when I get back?" "We will. Mommy will take care of your house, and I'll make more drawings for you," Matthew smiled. "I'm looking forward to seeing them." After dinner, while Amanda washed the dishes, Matthew stayed in the living room with Chloe, looking at all the drawings she had made during the day. Amanda watched them discreetly, noticing how he paid attention to every detail, how he praised the girl's work with sincerity. "Amanda," Matthew approached the kitchen when Chloe went to the bathroom. "I want to thank you." "For what?" "I just did my job." "No, it was more than that." Matthew looked around. "You transformed this place. When I got here today, for the first time, I felt like I was coming home, not just to an apartment." Amanda stopped washing the dishes and turned to him. "Matthew, I have everything," he continued, and his voice was lower, more reflective. "I have expensive furniture, state-of-the-art technology, a privileged view, material comfort." He paused. "But I never had this." "Had what?" "What you and Chloe brought here today, this feeling of home, that someone cares about this space. That someone cares about me enough to leave windows open for me to breathe better, to make food with care, to fill this place with life." Amanda felt her eyes well up with tears. "Matthew, you pay me to do this. It's my job to take care of your house." "No," he shook his head. "A job is cleaning and cooking. What you two did here today was much more than that. You gave me something I didn't know was missing." "What?" Matthew looked at Chloe, who had returned and was organizing her drawings on the table, humming softly. "The feeling of belonging to something, of having people who care about me, not for what I can give them, but just because... Amanda didn't know what to say. There was a vulnerability in Matthew's voice that touched her deeply. "Can you two stay for dinner tomorrow too?" he asked. "If you want us to, of course." "I do, very much." When Amanda and Chloe were getting ready to leave, Matthew walked them to the door. "Matthew," Chloe turned before getting into the elevator, "you won't feel lonely anymore now." "Why?" "Because now you have a family. Even if we don't live here, we care about you, and that means you're not alone anymore." Matthew knelt and hugged Chloe. "Thank you, little one." "You're welcome. That's what families do." In the elevator going down, Amanda looked at her daughter. "Chloe, what did you mean by family?" "Well, Mommy, it's obvious. We like Matthew, he likes us, we care about each other. Isn't that a family?" Amanda smiled, surprised once again by her daughter's simple wisdom. Maybe Chloe was right. Maybe family wasn't just about blood or official papers. Maybe it was about caring, about looking after one another, about being present. And that night, as Matthew ate the leftovers of the food Amanda had prepared alone, he realized that for the first time in years, he didn't feel the weight of silence in his apartment. There were still echoes of the afternoon, the sound of Chloe's footsteps down the hallways, Amanda's soft humming in the kitchen, the smell of home-cooked food in the air. His home had been invaded by life, by affection, by a form of love he had never experienced. And for the first time, Matthew Rivers understood the difference between having everything and having what truly matters. He had money, success, luxury, but only today had he discovered what it was to come home and feel like he belonged somewhere. And it was all because of a woman who opened windows to let the air circulate, and a girl who drew families where none had existed before. Matthew had been in his office since 6 in the morning. Financial reports were spread across the desk, charts glowed on the computer screen, and the phone had rung at least 10 times in the last hour. It was a typical Wednesday, full of numbers, decisions, and pressure. From the other side of the house, he could hear the familiar sounds that were now part of his routine. Amanda vacuuming in the living room, the soft hum of the washing machine, and occasionally Chloe's melodious voice chatting with her mother. They had been coming every day for 2 weeks. 2 weeks that had completely changed the atmosphere of his apartment. Matthew could no longer imagine how he had lived in silence for so long. He was analyzing an investment report when he heard small footsteps in the hallway. He didn't need to look up to know that Chloe was approaching. She always walked with a contagious energy, as if she were constantly discovering something new. "Knock, knock," her voice sounded at the office door. "Come in, Chloe." She appeared at the door, her blonde hair in 2 braids that Amanda had done that morning. She wore a light blue dress and carried a sheet of paper in her hands. "What are you doing?" she asked, approaching the desk. "Working. I need to analyze these numbers for an important meeting." Chloe came closer, observing the computer screen with curiosity. "That's a lot of numbers, isn't it?" "It is." "And you do this every day?" Matthew finally looked up from the computer. "I do." "It's my job." Chloe was silent for a moment, observing Matthew with that analytical gaze that sometimes surprised him with its maturity. "Matthew," she said finally, "you need some fun." The statement was so direct and unexpected that Matthew almost smiled. "Fun? Yes, you sit at this desk with numbers all the time? That's not fun." "Well, it's my job, Chloe. Adults have to work." "I know that. Mommy works too, but she stops to play with me sometimes." Chloe tilted her head. "When was the last time you played?" The question caught Matthew completely off guard. When was it? He tried to remember a recent moment when he had done something just for fun, without thinking about profit or productivity. He couldn't remember any. Well, see, you don't even remember." Chloe placed the sheet of paper she was carrying on the desk, gently pushing some reports aside. "That's why you need to play now. Chloe, I have a meeting in an hour." "An hour is a long time." She pulled his chair. "Come on, Matthew. Let's play on the floor." Matthew looked at the girl, then at the computer screen, then back at her. There was a determination in Chloe's bright eyes that was hard to resist. "On the floor?" "Yes. It's better for drawing and making up stories." Before Matthew could protest, Chloe was already pulling his hand, getting him out of the chair. He found himself being led out of the office towards the living room. "Chloe, I really need to—" "You need to play," she interrupted, with the authority only a child possesses. "Mommy always says working too much is bad for your health." Amanda appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. "Chloe, don't bother Matthew." "He's working." "She's not bothering me," Matthew heard himself say, surprised by his own words. "Actually, maybe a little break wouldn't hurt." Chloe's face lit up. "See, Mommy, he wants to play." "Are you sure?" Amanda asked, clearly concerned. "I know you have important meetings." Matthew looked at Chloe, who was already sitting on the living room floor, organizing colored pencils and paper. There was something in the purity of the moment that struck him. When was the last time someone had simply asked him to play, without wanting anything in return, with no hidden agenda, just for the pleasure of his company? "I'm sure," he replied, and to his own surprise, he really was. Matthew sat on the floor next to Chloe, crossing his legs. The carpet was soft beneath him, and the different perspective of the room, seeing everything from the bottom up, was strangely refreshing. "There!" Chloe clapped her hands. "Now you can draw something." "Draw?" Matthew picked up a blue-colored pencil, twirling it between his fingers. "I haven't drawn well, since I was a kid." "Everyone knows how to draw. You just have to try." Chloe was already scribbling on her paper. "Look, I'm drawing a castle." What about you? Matthew looked at the blank sheet in front of him. How many years had it been since he'd held a colored pencil? 15, 20. He could barely remember the last time he had done something creative without a commercial objective. Hesitantly, he touched the paper with the pencil. A simple line appeared, a bit crooked, uncertain. Chloe paused her own drawing to watch. Cool. What is it? I don't know yet, Matthew admitted, surprised to realize he was being honest. I'll figure it out as I draw. That's how it works, Chloe approved. You never know what's going to come out. It's a surprise. Matthew continued to draw, his lines gradually becoming more confident. What started as random scribbles slowly took shape. A house. No, a building. In fact, it looked more like... It's your building, Chloe exclaimed, recognizing the drawing before Matthew did. Where you work. Matthew stopped and looked at the paper. It was true. Unconsciously, he had drawn the building where he worked, but seen through the eyes of a child. Disproportionate, colorful, friendlier than the original. You draw well, Chloe commented. Now draw people inside. People? Yes, draw you, Mommy, and me going into the building. Matthew hesitated for a moment, then picked up another pencil. Drawing people was harder than buildings. His first attempts resulted in clumsy stick figures, similar to Chloe's drawings. Perfect, Chloe clapped when he finished. Now tell a story about the drawing. A story? Yes, all drawings have stories. What's the story of yours? Matthew looked at the paper, the colorful building, the 3 stick figures at the entrance. A story. When was the last time he had made up a story? Well, he began hesitantly. Once upon a time, there was a man who worked in a very tall building. What was his name? Chloe interrupted. Mark, Matthew improvised. And then, Mark worked every day with numbers and meetings. He thought his life was complete. Matthew found himself getting into the story, his voice becoming more animated. But one day, he met a very special little girl and her mother. What were their names? Matthew smiled. Clara and Anna. Clara is a pretty name, Chloe commented. To continue the story, Clara taught Mark something very important that he had forgotten. What? That sometimes you need to stop working and play a little. Chloe laughed, a crystal clear sound that echoed through the room, and then he was happier. Much happier. Because he discovered that having friends is more important than having money. What a beautiful story, Chloe applauded. Now I'm going to tell one about my castle. For the next 20 minutes, Matthew found himself completely absorbed in Chloe's imaginary world. She made up elaborate stories about brave princesses, gentle dragons, and kingdoms where everyone was friends. Matthew contributed with characters, created different voices, and even acted out some scenes. At one point, when he was doing the voice of a funny dragon, Matthew realized he was laughing, really laughing, with complete abandon. Not the polite laughter of business meetings or the forced smile of corporate dinners. It was a genuine laugh that came from the bottom of his chest and made his eyes water. You have a nice laugh, Chloe commented during a break in the story. I do. Yes, your eyes sparkle. You should laugh more. Amanda, who had been watching discreetly from the kitchen, approached at that moment. Matthew, your meeting. Matthew looked at the clock and was surprised. 45 minutes had passed as if they were 5. Oh, right. He started to get up, but Chloe held his arm. Will you play again tomorrow? Matthew looked at her, then at Amanda, then at the drawings scattered on the floor. Something fundamental had changed inside him in the last 45 minutes. He had rediscovered a part of himself that he thought he had lost forever. I will, Chloe. I promise. Promise for real. I promise. Chloe smiled and hugged him. Thank you for playing with me, Matthew. As he walked back to his office, Matthew still felt the echoes of laughter in his chest. He had an important meeting in 15 minutes, reports to analyze, decisions to make. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel the weight of responsibility as a burden. He felt lightness, and as he prepared for the video conference, Matthew carefully put his drawing in the desk drawer. A colorful reminder that sometimes the most important thing an adult can do is remember how to be a child again, even if it's just for 45 minutes. The week after the Playtime episode, Matthew did something he had never done in his entire career. He cancelled a late afternoon meeting. "I need to handle an urgent personal matter," he lied to his secretary, shutting down his computer at 5 in the afternoon. The urgent personal matter was simple. He wanted to get home while Amanda and Chloe were still there. For 3 weeks, he had gotten used to arriving at 7 and finding only the remnants of their presence. The tidy house, the smell of home-cooked food, a few drawings left on the coffee table. But after playing with Chloe, Matthew realized he wanted more. He wanted to be part of those moments, not just enjoy the results. When he opened the apartment door at 5:30, the surprise on Amanda's and Chloe's faces was worth every cancelled meeting. "Matthew!" Chloe dropped her colored pencils and ran to him. "You're home early today." "I am. I thought I could spend more time with you two." Amanda looked up from the table she was cleaning, clearly confused. "Did something happen?" "You always get home at 7. "Nothing happened, I just wanted to come home earlier." From that afternoon on, Matthew began to redesign his schedule. Meetings he used to schedule for the end of the day were moved to the morning. Important calls were now made before 5. For the first time in his professional life, he set a time to leave the office and he stuck to it religiously. "Are you feeling all right, sir?" his secretary asked in the second week of the new routine. "I've never seen you leave so early." "I'm great. In fact, I've never felt better." And it was true. Matthew discovered that working with a set deadline made him more efficient. He knew he had until 5 to get everything done, so he made better use of every minute. His mornings became more productive, his decisions quicker, his meetings more to the point. But the best part was coming home to life. "Tidy Mommy, Matthew's home," was always the first sound he heard upon opening the door. Chloe invariably dropped whatever she was doing to run to him, telling him about her day in details that only a 5-year-old would consider important. "Today I drew a purple elephant that eats strawberry ice cream. I found an ant in the kitchen, and Mommy said she was looking for food for her family. I made up a song about clouds that dance." Matthew found himself eagerly awaiting these stories. In the office, during important meetings, he would sometimes find himself wondering what Chloe was doing, what new imaginary adventure she was living. But it wasn't just Chloe that drew him home earlier. It was also Amanda. During the first few weeks, she had been professional, polite, but distant. She did her job impeccably and kept to herself. Matthew respected that, but as the days went by, the barriers naturally began to dissolve. It all started with small conversations in the kitchen. "How was your day?" he asked one Thursday, finding her preparing dinner. "Good, thank you. And yours?" "Tiring, lots of meetings." Amanda nodded, continuing to chop vegetables. Matthew stood there, not quite sure why he wasn't going to his office as he usually did. "Can I help with anything?" he offered. Amanda stopped chopping and looked at him, surprised. "Help? In the kitchen. I know how to do some basic things." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to." But I want to." That's how Matthew discovered the pleasure of cooking with someone. Amanda taught him how to chop onions without crying, how to season meat just right, how to know when the rice was done. He turned out to be a terrible cook, but an enthusiastic assistant. "You burned the garlic," Amanda laughed one night, taking the pan off the heat. "Sorry." "I got distracted." "By what?" Matthew didn't know how to explain that he had been distracted watching her cook, the natural way she moved around the kitchen, how she knew every ingredient, how she transformed simple things into delicious meals. "I just got distracted." Dinners became the best part of Matthew's day. He, Amanda, and Chloe sitting at the table, talking about everything and nothing. Chloe told crazy stories, Amanda talked about her life before she was unemployed, and Matthew found himself sharing childhood memories he hadn't remembered in years. "Did you also lose your front tooth when you were little?" Chloe asked one night, wiggling her loose tooth with her tongue. "I did, and I put it under my pillow for the tooth fairy." "And did she come?" Matthew remembered the nanny putting a coin under his pillow. "She did." "Cool. When my tooth falls out, will she visit me too?" "Definitely." Amanda smiled, watching the interaction. "Chloe, finish your dinner." "Okay, Mommy." They were simple, everyday moments, but Matthew found himself treasuring each one. For the first time in his adult life, He had something to look forward to besides financial results and business meetings. One night, while Chloe was drawing in the living room after dinner, Amanda and Matthew were in the kitchen washing dishes together. "Matthew, can I ask you something?" Amanda said, drying a plate. "Of course. Why did you start coming home earlier? Not that I'm complaining, but you always seemed so focused on work." Matthew stopped washing the pan, thinking about the answer. How could he explain that he had discovered something he didn't know he was looking for? How could he say that coming home to them had become more important than any meeting? "Because I realized I was missing something important," he said finally. "What?" "Real moments. Real conversations. Things that actually matter." Amanda continued drying the plate in silence, processing his words. "I spent years building a career, making money, buying things, and I thought that was enough." He looked into the living room, where Chloe was humming softly as she drew. "But you two showed me there's so much more to life. We just do our job here, Matthew." "Maybe, but to me, it means so much more than that." Amanda looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "Matthew, you know we're not obligated to have dinner with you every day, if you want your privacy." "I don't want privacy," Matthew answered quickly. "Just these dinners they're the best part of my day." "Really? Really? When I'm at the office, I find myself looking at the clock, counting the hours until I can come home, to hear Chloe's stories, to talk with you, to feel like I'm part of something." Amanda smiled softly. "Chloe gets excited for you to come home too. She always asks what time you'll be back." She does. She does. I think she sees you as, well, as family." The word family echoed in Matthew's chest. Family. Something he had never really had. He grew up with nannies, studied at boarding schools, and built a solitary life focused only on professional success. "And you?" he asked quietly. "So how do you see me?" Amanda hesitated, clearly thinking about her answer. "As someone who has become important to us, someone who gave us a second chance when we needed it." That night, after Amanda and Chloe had left, Matthew stood in the living room, looking at the drawings Chloe had left on the table. In one of them, she had drawn the three of them sitting at the dinner table, all smiling. He stuck the drawing on the refrigerator next to the others he was already collecting. Matthew walked to the panoramic window and looked at the city below. The lights twinkled like earthbound stars, but for the first time in years he didn't feel alone looking at that view. He had found something he didn't know he was looking for, a routine that didn't just revolve around work, but around people who cared about him, people who waited for him, people who made his presence matter. For the first time in his life, Matthew Rivers understood the difference between having a house and having a home. And it had all started with a girl who said he needed to play more, and a woman who turned simple meals into special moments. They had changed his routine, but more importantly, they had changed his life. And Matthew knew he didn't want to live any other way. It was a Friday night, and Matthew had arrived home earlier than usual at 4:30. Chloe greeted him with her usual enthusiasm, telling him about a new drawing she had made. This time, a garden full of colorful butterflies. "And this butterfly here is you." She pointed to a blue butterfly in the center of the paper. "Because you wear blue shirts a lot." Matthew smiled, touched by the attention to detail Chloe always showed. "Fi's the most beautiful butterfly in the garden. Of course, you're important in our butterfly family." The word family echoed in Matthew's chest, as it always did when Chloe used it so naturally. To her, it was obvious they were a family. For him, it was a dream he barely dared to admit. During dinner, Chloe chatted about a classmate who had lost her first tooth. How the tooth fairy gave her $5, $5 whole dollars. "Wow, that's generous," Amanda commented, smiling. "Mommy, when my tooth falls out, will the fairy give me $5 too?" "The tooth fairy has different rates for each child," Amanda explained diplomatically. Matthew watched the interaction between mother and daughter, as he always did. Amanda's infinite patience, the way she always found answers that protected Chloe's innocence without completely lying. After dinner, as had become their routine, the three of them stayed in the living room. Chloe drew some more, while Amanda and Matthew talked about their day. But Matthew noticed that Amanda was quieter than usual, thoughtful. "Did something happen today?" he asked. "No, nothing specific. Just sometimes I think about the future, about how things will be." "What kind of things?" Amanda looked at Chloe, who was completely absorbed in her drawing. "Chloe is growing up. She'll start asking harder questions. She'll want stability, to understand her situation better." Matthew felt something tighten in his chest. "You'll keep coming here, won't you?" "Of course, as long as you want our work." "It's not about work," Matthew said quickly, then lowered his voice. "For me, it was never just about work." Amanda looked at him but didn't reply. There was something in her eyes that Matthew couldn't quite decipher. At 8 o'clock, Chloe started yawning over her drawings. "Someone's sleepy," Amanda observed. "I'm not sleepy," Chloe protested, but another yawn betrayed her. "I think it's time for us to go home," Amanda said, starting to gather the drawings. "Matthew," Chloe turned to him, rubbing her eyes. "Why can you give me a good-night hug?" "Of course, little one." Matthew knelt and Chloe hugged him tight. "Will you be here tomorrow?" "I will. Promise. I promise." Amanda watched the exchange in silence. There was something in her expression that Matthew couldn't interpret, tenderness mixed with worry. "Actually," Matthew said suddenly, "Chloe seems very tired. Why don't you two stay tonight? I can get the guest room ready." Amanda hesitated. "Matthew, we don't have to." "I know you don't have to, but it's late. Chloe is sleepy, and it would be more comfortable for you." Chloe perked up immediately. "Can we sleep here, Mommy, please?" Amanda looked at her daughter, then at Matthew. "Are you sure?" "I am." 20 minutes later, Chloe was fast asleep in the guest room, hugging the teddy bear Matthew had given her on the first day they met. Amanda had improvised a nightgown with one of his shirts, and now she was in the living room with Matthew, the two of them sitting on the couch in a comfortable silence. "She falls asleep fast," Matthew commented. "She always has. When she's tired, she's out in minutes." Amanda smiled. "Thank you for letting us stay." "My pleasure. Actually," Matthew hesitated, then decided to continue. "I like knowing you're here, that you're not crossing the city late at night." Amanda looked at him. "Matthew, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you do all this? Why do you treat us like family?" The question Matthew had both expected and feared. He looked at his hands, then at the window, and finally back at Amanda. "Because you gave me something I could never buy," he said softly. "What?" Matthew took a deep breath. It was now or never. Care, affection, attention. "You gave me that without expecting anything in return." Amanda was silent, waiting for him to continue. "I lived for work, Amanda. It was all I knew. I woke up thinking about numbers, went to sleep thinking about business deals. I thought that was life." Matthew looked at her. "You two showed me that life is so much more." "Matthew, you showed me what it's like to come home and feel like I belong somewhere, what it's like to have someone waiting for me, asking how my day was for real, not because they need to know for something." Amanda felt tears welling in her eyes. You turned a house into a home. You turned routine into special moments. You turned my life into something worth living." The silence stretched between them. Matthew could hear his own heart beating. "Amanda," he said finally, his voice trembling slightly, I'd like to have a chance." "A chance for what?" "To get to know each other better, for real, not as boss and employee, but as people who care about each other." Amanda looked at him, surprised by the brutal honesty of his confession. "I know it might seem strange," Matthew continued quickly. "I know our situation is complicated, but I feel like maybe we could form a real family. Me, you, and Chloe." The words hung in the air between them. Matthew had laid himself completely bare, admitted his feelings, revealed his deepest dreams. Now all that was left was to wait. Amanda was silent for a long moment, processing everything she had heard. Finally, she spoke. "Matthew, I wasn't expecting this. I know, and I know it might be very sudden. But I needed to tell you how I feel." Amanda got up from the couch and walked to the window, looking at the city view. Matthew watched her silhouette against the city lights, waiting, barely able to breathe. "We can try," she said finally, still with her back to him. Matthew's heart soared. "Really?" Amanda turned around, but slowly. "Matthew." "Very carefully. Of course, any way you want. You need to understand something about me." Amanda returned to the couch but didn't sit. She stood with her arms crossed, as if protecting herself. "I've been very disappointed before." Matthew nodded, waiting for her to continue. "Chloe's father abandoned me when she was a baby," Amanda said, her voice growing firmer. "He left me alone, without money, without support, with a child to raise. Amanda, let me finish." She held up a hand. "He promised he would take care of us. He promised we would be a family. And the moment things got hard, he disappeared." Matthew felt anger towards a man he had never met. How could someone abandon Amanda and Chloe? "Because of that, I built walls," Amanda continued. "To protect myself and, more importantly, to protect Chloe. Because it's not just me who gets hurt when someone disappears. It's her, too. I understand." "I'm scared, Matthew." Amanda's voice grew quieter, more vulnerable. "I'm scared she'll suffer if you disappear." "I won't disappear. That's what they all say at the beginning." Matthew stood up and approached her, but maintained a respectful distance. "Amanda, look at me." She lifted her bright eyes, and Matthew saw fear there. Real, deep-seated fear, built by years of disappointment and struggle. "I'm not him," Matthew said firmly. "I'm not Chloe's father. I'm not any man who has hurt you before." "How can I be sure?" "Because I know what it's like to be alone. I know what it's like to have no one who truly cares about you. I know what it's like to live without love." Matthew took a step closer. "And now that I've found you, now that I know what it's like to have a family, I would never throw that away." Amanda looked into his eyes, searching for signs of lies or falsehood. Matthew held her gaze steady, letting her see all his sincerity. "Chloe has grown very attached to you," Amanda said finally, "and I've grown very attached to her. And to you. If you change your mind, if you decide this is too complicated, she'll be devastated. I won't change my mind. Matthew, you don't even know me well. You don't know my whole story, my flaws, my annoying habits." Matthew almost smiled. "Then tell me, we have time. And what if you don't like what you find out? And what if I like it even more?" Amanda closed her eyes, fighting with herself. Matthew could see the internal battle, the desire to believe against the fear of getting hurt again. "I work for you," she said. "That complicates everything. Then you can stop working for me. I can help you find another job. Matthew, or you can keep working here, but not as an employee, as the woman I share my life with." Amanda opened her eyes, surprised by the proposal. "I'm serious, Amanda, about everything, about us, about forming a family, about building something real together. Are you sure what you're asking for? An instant family with a woman you barely know and a child that isn't yours." Matthew thought of Chloe sleeping in the next room, of her drawings scattered around the house, of the crazy stories she told, of the tight hugs she gave every day. "Chloe is already mine," he said simply. "In my heart, she's already my daughter. And you," he hesitated, "so you're already much more than you realize." Amanda felt tears coming. "Matthew, I'm so scared. I know, and I understand. But we can go slow. We can build this carefully, in our own time. And what if it doesn't work out? And what if it does?" Amanda looked at him for a long moment. Matthew saw the exact moment something shifted in her eyes, when fear shared space with hope. "Slowly," she said finally, "very slowly, with all the time in the world. And Chloe comes first, always, always." Matthew agreed without hesitation. Amanda nodded slowly. "Then we can try." Matthew felt as if he could fly. "Really? Really? But Matthew," she looked him in the eyes, "don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint her, please." "I promise," Matthew said, and he had never made a more serious promise in his entire life. "I promise I will do everything to be the man you deserve." Amanda smiled for the first time since the conversation had begun, a small, cautious, but real smile. And then let's see where this goes. That night, Matthew stayed awake long after Amanda had gone to sleep in the guest room with Chloe. He looked out the panoramic window, as he did every night. But this time, he didn't just see a sleeping city. He saw possibilities. He saw a future. He saw a family built not by chance or convenience, but by conscious choice and true love. He had opened up completely, revealed his deepest feelings, and Amanda had agreed to try. It wouldn't be easy. He knew her fears, the scars she carried, but he was willing to be patient, to prove every day that he deserved her trust. For the first time in his life, Matthew Rivers had asked for something that money couldn't buy, and miraculously, he had been given a chance to earn it, a chance to build the family he had always dreamed of, but had never dared to ask for, a chance to love and be loved for real. And he wasn't going to waste this opportunity. Saturday morning, Matthew woke up with a different feeling in his chest. It was as if the world had gained brighter colors after the conversation with Amanda the night before. They had decided to try to build something together, and that changed everything. For the first time in his adult life, Matthew felt that the future held possibilities that went beyond financial spreadsheets and corporate meetings. Amanda and Chloe wouldn't be coming to work on the weekend, as was always the arrangement, but Matthew found himself wanting to see them. He wanted to spend time together outside of the work routine, to do something that normal families did, something he had never experienced, but now desperately wanted to know. At 10 in the morning, after an hour of pacing around the apartment unable to focus on anything, he called Amanda. "Hello? Hi, Amanda. It's me, Matthew. Hi, is everything okay?" There was surprise in her voice. They never talked on weekends. "Everything's great. Listen, I was thinking, how about we go out today, the three of us? Take a trip. Do something different." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Matthew held his breath, suddenly worried he had been too forward. A trip? Yes, maybe to the park, or anywhere Chloe likes, just to spend time together, as a family. Amanda was quiet for a moment. Matthew could almost hear her thinking, weighing the possibilities of this new reality they were building together. "Amanda, are you there?" "I am. Yes, sorry. It's just, I'm still getting used to the idea of us as, well, as more than boss and employee. I completely understand. We can go slow. Remember? No pressure at all. If you don't feel comfortable." "No, it's not that. Actually, Chloe would love it. She's always asking to go to the park, but I get a little worried going alone with her. It's a very big place, and sometimes she gets so excited she runs all over." "Then it's settled. I'll pick you up at noon." "Matthew, are you sure? You don't have to feel obligated to entertain us on the weekends." "Amanda," Matthew interrupted gently, "my only plans for today were to stay home alone, thinking about you two. I'd much rather be with you for real." There was another silence, softer this time. "All right, noon then." "Perfect, then." "And Amanda?" "Yes?" "Thank you for saying yes." When Matthew knocked on the door of Amanda's small apartment, Chloe answered before her mother could even get to the entrance. Her blonde hair was down, swinging as she jumped with joy. "Matthew, Mommy said we're going to the park." "We are. Are you ready to play a lot?" "I am." Chloe jumped for joy. "Can I go on the big slide? And the swings and those spinning things?" "You can go on all the rides you want." Amanda appeared behind her daughter, wearing a simple light blue dress and white sneakers. She had her hair in a side braid and wore no makeup, more natural than Matthew had ever seen her. He found her beautiful, not the artificial beauty he was used to seeing at social events, but a genuine, relaxed beauty. "Hi," she said, a little shy. "Hi, you both look beautiful." Amanda blushed slightly. "Thank you. You two are different." Matthew looked down. He had traded his usual suit for dark jeans and a navy blue polo shirt. "Different how?" "More relaxed, more normal. That's how I feel when I'm with you." The park Matthew chose was a 15-minute drive away. It was large, with lots of green space, well-maintained playgrounds, and families scattered on the grass for impromptu picnics. Matthew couldn't remember the last time he had been in a place like this, if he had ever been at all. "Wow, it's huge!" Chloe exclaimed as she got out of the car, her bright eyes wide. "It even has a lake. And look, Mommy, there are ducks swimming. And boats." Matthew pointed to the small vessels some families were renting. "Can we go on a boat too?" Chloe asked hopefully. "If you want to, of course." "Chloe, don't run too far," Amanda called out as the girl started running towards the playground, but she was smiling. Matthew watched Amanda watch her daughter. There was an infinite affection in her eyes, but also a constant vigilance, as if she were always protecting Chloe from some invisible danger. It was the posture of someone who had learned that the world could be dangerous for those she loved. "She's happy in places like this," Amanda commented, walking beside Matthew towards the playground. "And you?" Amanda looked at him, thoughtful. "I'm happy seeing her happy. It's always been that way." "And when are you happy just for yourself? For your own accomplishments?" The question caught Amanda off guard. "What do you mean? When was the last time you did something just because it gave you pleasure? Not for Chloe, not for work, just for you?" Amanda stopped walking for a moment, really thinking about the answer. I don't know. A long time ago, I think. Since she was born, everything I do is with her in mind first. Then today you're going to play too. Play. Why not? Who said only kids can have fun at parks? They walked to a bench near the playground, where they could watch Chloe explore every ride with contagious enthusiasm. She went up the tallest slide at least 5 times, swung until her little legs could no longer reach the ground, and tried to cross the rope bridge with the determination of a professional climber. "Look at me!" she would shout with each new achievement, waving vigorously at them. "We're looking," Matthew would shout back, and he really was. He couldn't take his eyes off the girl. There was something hypnotic in the way she enjoyed every moment, how she found pure joy in such simple things. "She has so much energy," Amanda said, laughing as Chloe decided to go down the slide head first. "It's incredible to see how she enjoys every moment, as if every game is the best thing in the world. She's always been like that. Since she was little, she finds joy in the simplest things. Sometimes I think she inherited that ability from her father, because I've always been more serious." Matthew noticed the casual mention of Chloe's father. "Do you think about him sometimes?" "Sometimes. Mostly when I see certain characteristics in her that aren't mine." Amanda paused. "But I don't miss him. I miss the idea of him. You know, the idea of having a partner." Matthew nodded, understanding. "And now?" "Now what?" "Do you still miss the idea of having a partner?" Amanda looked at him, her bright eyes reflecting the sunlight. "I'm discovering that maybe I already have one." Matthew watched Chloe for a few minutes in silence. She had found other children and was already organizing a game of tag, naturally taking on the role of leader. "Amanda," Matthew said suddenly, without taking his eyes off Chloe. "Yes, I want to talk about Chloe's future." Amanda turned to him, curious and apprehensive. "Her future, her education. I want to help her get into a good school." Amanda blinked, surprised. "Matthew, an education secures her future," Matthew continued, his eyes still fixed on Chloe. "She deserves every opportunity, every single one. You don't have to think about that. She's fine in the school she's in. I do have to." Matthew turned to Amanda, his expression serious. "If we're going to be a family, then I want to take care of everything a family takes care of. And that includes giving Chloe the best education possible." Amanda felt tears welling in her eyes. "Matthew, that would cost a lot of money. Good private schools are very expensive. Money is not a problem, it never has been. What I didn't have before was someone worth investing in. But she's my daughter, my responsibility. And now she's my responsibility too. At least, I would very much like her to be." Amanda wiped away a tear that had escaped. "You talk as if I were her father. That's exactly how I feel. Matthew..." "Amanda, look at her." Matthew pointed to Chloe, who was helping a smaller child up the slide. "Look how smart she is, how careful she is with others, how she has natural leadership. She has the potential to be whatever she wants in life. I know she's special, but then why not give her all the tools to shine? The best teachers, the best resources, the best opportunities." Amanda looked at her daughter, then at Matthew. You really want to do this? She's mine, Amanda. Maybe not biologically, but in my heart, she's already my daughter. And that's what parents do. They make sure their children have better chances. The word parents echoed in Amanda's heart. Matthew already saw himself as Chloe's father. She's never had that, Amanda whispered. She's never had someone who thought about her future like that. She does now, and she always will, as long as I'm here. Chloe came running up to them, sweaty and smiling. Did you see how I helped the little boy and how I organized the game? We did. You were very brave and kind, Amanda said, wiping the sweat from her daughter's face. Matthew, do you want to play with me? There's a seesaw that needs 2 people. Matthew looked at Amanda, who nodded and smiled. Of course. Let's go. Amanda watched them play on the seesaw. Matthew laughed at Chloe's jokes, pretended he was going to jump to scare her, and seemed to be genuinely having fun. Afterward, they went for a boat ride on the small lake. Chloe insisted on driving, while Matthew rowed and Amanda took pictures. This is the best family in the world, Chloe announced from the middle of the boat. It really is, Matthew agreed. It really is, Amanda repeated, smiling. 2 weeks later, Matthew was sitting in a tiny chair in the auditorium of Chloe's school. Amanda was next to him, equally squeezed into a chair made for children. Are you sure you're comfortable? Amanda whispered. I'm great, Matthew lied, adjusting his blue tie. Hi, you didn't have to come. There's nothing more important than being here. The presentation was simple. Each child had prepared something to show their parents. Chloe had decided to tell a story about family. And now, let's hear Chloe's story about my family, the teacher announced. Amanda held Matthew's hand. Chloe walked onto the stage, wearing the yellow dress Amanda had bought especially for the occasion. Her blonde hair was tied back with a yellow ribbon. Hi, everyone, she began. I'm going to tell you the story of my family. Once upon a time, there was a very brave mommy, Chloe began, looking at Amanda. She took care of a little girl all by herself, and she was the coolest mommy in the world. Amanda wiped away the tears that had formed. But the mommy was sad sometimes because it was hard to take care of everything alone, and the little girl was sad too. Then one day, they met a very nice man who lived in a very tall building. He was lonely too. Chloe turned the page, showing a drawing of 3 figures holding hands. At first, the man just wanted to help, but then they discovered they could be a family, and they didn't have to be sad anymore. And you know what the best part is? Chloe asked. The best part is that you don't have to be rich to have a family. You just need to have love. Matthew felt the tears coming. And now I have the best family in the world, a mommy who loves me very much, and a daddy of the heart who takes care of both of us. The word daddy hit Matthew like a lightning bolt. And they love each other too, just like in the movies. And we're going to be together forever, because family is forever. The end, Chloe announced, taking a bow. The audience applauded. Matthew and Amanda stood up, clapping enthusiastically. Chloe ran down and threw herself into both of their arms at the same time. Did you like it? It was the most beautiful story I've ever heard, Amanda said. It was perfect, Matthew added. Of course it's true. You really are the best family in the world. Matthew looked around the auditorium. Other families greeted each other, took pictures, made plans to celebrate. And there was his, Amanda, Chloe, and him, united not by blood or money, but by choice and love. Shall we go home? Matthew asked, and for the first time the word home meant much more than an address. Let's go, Amanda replied, smiling. To our house, Chloe added, skipping between them. And so it was, leaving the auditorium hand in hand, Amanda on one side, Chloe in the middle, Matthew on the other, that they officially became a family in the eyes of the world. Not for money, not for convenience, not for signed papers, but by choice, by love, by presence, by affection, attention, and the conscious decision that, together, they were stronger and more complete than they had ever been alone. Matthew Rivers had discovered that true wealth is not measured in numbers in a bank account. It's measured in tight hugs, stories told with love, school presentations watched from uncomfortable chairs, and the certainty that you have a permanent place in someone's heart. And he was, finally, truly rich. Matthew had discovered that a family is not formed by luxury, but by affection, attention, and presence. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.